Conversation all morning long this morning. Washington Examiner investigative reporter Sarah Bedford and Payne Capital Management President Ryan Payne. Mornings with Maria is live right now.
Thank you for the job you do so well. You risk it all in freedom's name and sometimes go through hell. Thank you.
And it's time for the hot topic of the hour. Thousands of anti-Israel protesters shutting down traffic in Midtown Manhattan yesterday in one of the largest demonstrations in recent weeks. The rally started in Bryant Park and then moved to the New York Times building Midtown, where a group staged a sit-in before heading to Times Square. The protesters sending a message to President Biden during the demonstration. Watch this. Former President Trump addressed the recent pro-Palestinian protests and Biden's handling of foreign policy last night during an interview on Univision. Here's what 45 had to say.
The problem I have is that the Biden administration, they're doing so many things wrong, and they have such power. This country has such power over the world if you know how to use it. And this could really, the way they're doing it, I really believe could lead, including Ukraine and all of the things that are happening there. I really believe this could end up in a very, very bad situation for everybody, for the whole world, It could end up in World War III. People are very surprised when they see, 50 and 100,000 people demonstrating, and they say Palestinians, we're on the side of the Palestinians. Everyone's saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? And I think Israel has to do a better job of public relations, frankly, because the other side is beating them at the public relations front. That's a very important front. Worldwide, that's a very important front. So they do have to do a better job.
Well, Sarah, Ryan, the city was a mess yesterday with all of this. Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's been really interesting to watch how the left has tried to sort of defend the sort of outright anti-Semitism that we've seen weaved into these protests, right? I mean, when there are fringe elements that find their way into, cultural issues on the right, demonstrations on the right, that sort of defines the whole event, right? But you're seeing, Gabe Kaminsky at the Washington Examiner had a great story this week about some of the organizers of these protests have actual ties to legitimate, recognized terrorist groups. And when those are discovered, the left tries to downplay that and says, well, they're just interlopers taking advantage. They are not held to the sort of same standards. But the left has really been captured by a pretty radical element on this Palestinian issue. And, that's putting a lot of pressure on Joe Biden to move away from reason here.
Yeah, that's true. And there's also what's being called a Hamas portion of Congress, the squad, right?
Yeah, it's kind of wild, and I think Trump makes a good point. I mean, he's the greatest marketer of all time. It is kind of a marketing issue here. Like, how can we call this a genocide? And that's what's being called here, when really you're seeing a retaliation against terrorists. And to your point, Maria, that to have the left and have a contingent of Congress that's supporting what's going on right now is mind-blowing. And if you look at New York City here, if you look at just the amount of anti-Jewish acts that have happened just in the last month in October, it's like skyrocketed here in the city, and it's just like completely unacceptable. And it's completely the wrong message to send the American people.
Yeah, I mean, the anti-Semitism has been so disturbing, Sarah, and I don't know about the White House's reaction to this. As soon as this all started, what did they do? They came up with a group of people led by Kamala Harris to push back on Islamophobia.
Right. I mean, there's been a sort of reluctance, I think, to address the anti-Semitism head on because of those fringe elements within the Democratic Party that are so ascendant. The dangerous thing here is that Joe Biden has pushed so much of his foreign policy through the lens of how it's going to play domestically with liberals. I mean, you see that in Ukraine. You see that with him going soft on China. And there's a danger here that Joe Biden will sort of start to shape his Israel policy to appease those factions of the Democratic Party. You're already seeing him start to, waver on that unequivocal support for Israel by calling for, these lengthy humanitarian pauses and admonishing Israel in some cases.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we are just getting started. We're talking with former Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe. We'll get his reaction to the growing number of subpoenas against the Biden family at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And he will also touch on China and Russia trying to infiltrate the U.S. election.